Welcome to the 2015 General Engineering webinar. I'm Jim Widdman, the Director of General Engineering now, and I'm with Bob Crockett, the former Director of General Engineering, and on sabbatical at the moment, but took time out of his busy schedule to come and talk about general engineering to everybody. So turn it over to Bob to start us off.
Great. Okay. Well, this is an opportunity to both hopefully have some people join us live. And for those of you who are seeing this as a recording, the expectation is that we can spend about half an hour getting you up to speed about what's been going on with general engineering and what's going to be happening moving forward. So for those of you who are alumni of the general engineering program, again, especially those who are not the biomed students, general engineering has had a number of different roles that it's played over the last 9 or so years. The main ones are to help people understand what they want to do. So the first one is facilitate lower division mobility, also including re-entry. We've had alumni who are 45 years old and coming back to finish up their senior project. We've had students who change majors a number of times till they find their niche. That's one of the historical missions of general engineering, and it's served our students well. The other one, which many of you have participated in, is the individualized courses study. And that is the traditional build-your-own major that general engineering is supported with the 40 units of upper division individualized courses study. The third area is probably less visible to former students, but it's really important to us, and that's curricular mechanism. So that because the general engineering program has the flexibility it has, and because we don't have a permanent faculty, it's actually very easy to try things out. So the biomedical engineering program is a good example of that. The only way we could develop that from scratch was to pilot it, was to prototype it. And we were able to do that pretty easily through general engineering by starting with a series of classes and then working more and more towards the formal program that it is right now. So those have historically been the main roles of general engineering. And again, for those of you who are in the program, depending on what year you graduated, you may well know that for the last, we'll say, seven years ago, starting about 8 years ago, ending about 2 or 3 years ago, general engineering has been heavily invested in getting the biomedical engineering program up and running. So over half of the general engineering graduates graduated in a biomedical engineering concentration during that time period, until we became a full formal program and department. And by the way, it is a full department now, and it is just received its accreditation for the first time. So it is definitely up and running. And now that whole activity is over, it's an opportunity to look at what general engineering has done in the past, look at what general engineering can do, and see what the best course of action is. So just to give you a snapshot of what the program is right now, it's interesting in that it's very different than nearly all the other programs. About 50 to 80, depending on the year, students are admitted as freshmen, first-time freshmen, into the general engineering program. But almost 70% of those, give or take, will, by the first year, change into another major. So as you're well aware, Cal Poly requires you to declare a program as part of your application. Not all universities do, and many of the general engineering students were bright enough to realize that this is kind of a backdoor way to not declare a major, or at a minimum to work towards an engineering degree without really fine-tuning which engineering degree it's going to be. And that's a pretty typical question that high school entry engineers face. Oftentimes the default is we'll just go into mechanical engineering, and that's not necessarily the best thing for the student or for the mechanical engineering department. General engineering has helped by providing a landing place for those students who really are trying to find their niche, but that means that quite a few students who come in won't be there at the end of the year, and that's fine. That's appropriate. That is historically what has been part of the program. At any given time, there's about 170 students, but it's interesting because we never see each other all in one classroom or at one time and place. And so 170 students sounds like a fairly large program, but really it seems like there are 40 or 50 students who are actively working towards an individualized course of study at any given period of time. The rest are coming and going and using general engineering as sort of a short-term mechanism. So on the output side, on the graduation side, we have about 25 or 30 general engineering graduates per year. And that might only be a handful of the people who originally entered as general engineers and stayed all the way through. The rest of them are people who started out in some other major and potentially even some other college at Cal Poly, transferred in and graduate with a general engineering degree. General engineering is also interesting in that it's very, very hard to put a simple label on it. It's because it's a very diverse group of students that are all using general engineering for their own particular purpose. We can't really say one label that fits everybody. It's still overly simplistic, but it's important to note that general engineering at the two ends of the spectrum has some of the Cal Poly graduates who are among the most prepared and ready to go. They know what they want to do. They're doing something that is unique, but they've got their own path and they do it. And they often have very high GPA and have immediate entry into what interesting field they want to do. The other end, we have people who are using general engineering because really that's their only option to graduate. And what I mean by that is that they have for some reason or another taken a path that would otherwise be challenging to graduate from. So for example, a student who started out as a business major and decided to become a mechanical engineer after a couple of years would have a very, very hard time transferring in, actually impossible, transferring into mechanical engineering based on unit count. But it's completely legitimate for them to finish up with general engineering, taking mostly mechanical engineering courses. So it's an interesting collection. That's part of what makes the general engineering program not only unique, but really interesting to be a part of. I won't read this verbatim. It'll be up on the screen long enough so you can see it. But this is pretty typical of the sort of student who takes advantage of the general engineering program. It's a student who came into general engineering, switched into computer engineering, and then after really exploring computer engineering, realized that wasn't exactly enough for them. It didn't fulfill his goal. And so asking in this case to whether he can switch back and form his own unique degree program in general engineering. And I get this sort of thing all the time. This is typical of the sort of people who are interested in the general engineering program. And that's why I think at this university, especially with programs being as impacted as they are and prerequisites, strings being as challenging as they are, general engineering is actually a really necessary part of the College of Engineering because it allows for people that either might not quite find their niche or might fall through the cracks and have to drop or transfer. So that has historically been the role of general engineering, and it's served the university well. It's been a very low-cost program because we don't have any faculty, and I have been the director for many years, which has been a half-time position. So it's a low overhead, high value program. What's interesting with change in academic leadership and a combination of that plus external review that we just went through, plus some other changes around here, plus the recession, plus biomedical engineering become its own program, we had an opportunity to really look at what general engineering has been up to and whether it requires any course correction or has any opportunities that we haven't taken advantage of. And the real kind of kickoff for this was an external review that we had a number of years back. So as you may or may not know, general engineering is the only Cal Poly engineering program that is not accredited by ABET. And that's done by choice. That has been a choice not to seek accreditation. And there's a whole backstory to that. I'll make two simple statements, and if anybody wants to have an extended discussion about this, I'd be happy to do so. But the two sort of punchlines are, number one, the lack of accreditation, in my experience, has not impacted any student in any major way. There are 99.999% of the students don't have any particular issue in terms of getting a job, government job, grad school, or anything like that. The only thing it plays with a little bit is the date that you're eligible for taking the professional engineer's licensing exam. But again, that's a very small group of people that has impacted. The other point I'll make is that the reason that we had not sought accreditation was really just a matter of resources. It takes time and effort and faculty to have a program that you can, when you accredit something, you have to quantify it, you have to track it, you have to monitor it using certain processes and procedures that we just didn't have in place. So there's nothing that was holding us back except, honestly, the resources was really the bottom line. So given that we haven't been reviewed by ABET, we had an external review that was done in the style of ABET come in and take a look at the program and essentially do the same sort of thing that an accrediting agency would do and give us recommendations on what we're doing, what we could improve, and that sort of thing. This is a summary of the recommendations. It was very, very clear the reviewers really saw the value, recognized the value, as I've been describing, of general engineering for Cal Poly. Useful purpose for its multiple missions, as we talked about. They, and I wholeheartedly agree, they recommended that we really do need more formalized assessment processes. Whether that is seeking accreditation, which is certainly a possibility, or doing our own internal assessment, we really need to make sure that the quality control is not just intuitive or known, that it's quantified, that we can track what we're doing and be able to make improvements on a rational basis. And then their third recommendation, this was a couple of years ago, was that general engineering really needs to completely decouple from biomedical engineering. That was something that was confusing for a while when, for a time period there, general engineering was part of the biomedical engineering department. And that was confusing because it has historical reasons, but at this point, there is no particular link to biomed. So it needs its own identity, and along with that, separation from BMed. If you're going to do that, it needs resources. So it takes money and space and administrative support to create general engineering, to decouple general engineering from biomedical engineering and create its own entity. That was the reviewers' recommendations. At that point, again, this is a few years back, with the support of our dean, Deb Larson, it was really put to the group of engineering department chairs to make a decision about whether general engineering would continue to exist. Nobody suggested that it wasn't doing a good job, but whether general engineering should just continue to go on as is, or really to flourish. And so, as I mentioned before, I think universally we had agreement that general engineering is an important program. But the department chairs agreed, the dean agreed that this is the time, this is an opportunity right now to really bring general engineering to the next level, which we'll talk about as we move forward. And that's part of the motivation for this webinar, is to explain where general engineering is now, where it's headed. But I just wanted to point out that it was a conscious decision, and this is during the recession, so it was a painful conscious decision, that there will be a cost, and we will do this. So I think that's a real vote of confidence from the entire college and the university to show that general engineering is an important program. I describe this as a cloud because in order to tackle the question of what does general engineering do moving forward, you can't take it one piece at a time. So if you separate from biomedical engineering and create your own identity, you're going to need additional resources. If you're going to seek accreditation from ABET, that's more resources, but it also impacts the curriculum. If you impact the curriculum, that changes the way that you approach enrollment, and all of these are linked together. And so rather than take this all on my own, we formed what we call the General Engineering Faculty Working Group a couple years back, which had representatives from a number of different departments, all of whom had an interest in general engineering. It was a really good group of people who had sort of shared the vision of what general engineering could do. And we got together and started hammering out some of what needed to change and what should change if general engineering is going to not only move forward in the future but flourish. I'll point out that this is, I say, strawman vision and mission. We really haven't even formalized anything in terms of a formal mission for general engineering as a new program. All this is a work in process. We just this year have been fully decoupled from biomedical engineering. So general engineering exists not as a department, it exists as a program essentially outside of the department structure. It doesn't have a separate department or department it reports to. General engineering, similar to computer engineering, is a program that essentially exists at the college level. So our sort of consensus of thought for the general engineering faculty working group resulted in the verbiage here. General engineering program enables independent thinking, self-motivated students and faculty to realize their personal visions of curricula for the 21st century. The mission of general engineering program is twofold. Number one, to enhance student success college-wide by facilitating undergraduate exploration and mobility and by granting individualized degrees of study. And number two, to support strategic initiatives of the College of Engineering as a mechanism for multidisciplinary faculty and curricular development. So this mission reflects the sort of diverse nature of general engineering that yes, it's for students who want to chart their own course, but it's also for faculty and for the college who wants to try curricular innovations. And this would include things ranging from entrepreneurship to what Jim is participating in right now, the multidisciplinary senior project and other activities that cross department boundaries. So if we look at what people have done from day one in general engineering, and what will continue to be a big role of general engineering moving forward. I call this independent course of study for independent thinkers. And so this is really for people who do know what they want to do, and what they want to do doesn't fit cleanly within a program or department boundaries. And that includes things like degree programs that are interdisciplinary by nature. So mechatronics, microelectromechanical systems, microfluidics, that sort of work that involves combination of multiple disciplines. A lot of our students are interested in alternative energy. We've had graduates who are very successful in areas such as ocean engineering, solar fuels, biofuels, all sorts of different fuel sources. And again, that's something that doesn't fit squarely into a single program here. We're having an increasing interest in the area of product design or industrial design, especially in the area of more the artistic side of engineering, combining potentially courses of study that include mechanical engineering, materials, manufacturing, but also art and potentially the business side. We also have a number of students who are really putting together very, very interesting programs to do what they want to do. And a lot of those involve not only cross-department College of Engineering, but cross-college. So we see more and more students who are interested in combining some pretty deep study in one of the sciences with engineering. And that the science side could be chemistry, could be physics, could be biology. So we have these very interesting programs that end up in, like the example of computational biology or computational chemistry, or these sort of permutations. So that's kind of one cluster. Yeah, you can go ahead and cluster them. We'll talk about that in a second, why I separated these. Moving down the list, we're getting more and more people interested in using engineering as a springboard for what might not be a traditional engineering career. So, for example, entrepreneurship or technology management, where they're not necessarily doing engineering calculations as part of their job, but a technical background is what really enables them to do what they want to do in an entrepreneurial environment or leading a group of very technical project type work. Pre-med, but also pre-law, pre-MBA, pre-anything. So if you use general engineering as a sort of a broad-based undergraduate, it serves as a great springboard towards graduate or professional school in any number of fields. Engineering education, we have, I probably could count up 12 or so students in recent memory who their real goal was to be a high school or junior high educator And having an engineering background, especially a broad engineering background, is amazingly beneficial for that. Technology policy, people who are interested in eventually going into politics. Wouldn't that be nice if we had more politicians that had an engineering background? So that's my second cluster there, if you want to cluster up. There we go. The last category is your vision goes here, is anything that we couldn't even come up with. The students are always challenging us as advisors with interesting and innovative things that they want to do. But the clusters are really kind of representative of two different types of categories that we see in general engineering for the people who graduate. And that's something that we've known for a while, but as a plan of moving forward, especially if we're moving towards ABET accreditation, which is a distinct possibility. In revising the curriculum, we want to better meet the needs of both of these groups. And so if you go to the next slide, I'll show you, and again, this will be up on the screen long enough so you can read this word chart at your leisure. It doesn't really matter what the actual classes are, but some of you may be interested in seeing what our revised curriculum is. So this was developed by the faculty working group. It was approved it's approved and in the catalog this cycle. So this is the first group of incoming freshmen who are under the general engineering revised curriculum. And essentially what we did was there were a number of general engineering concentrations that really didn't have a purpose today. They were left over from times past. Things like biomedical engineering was a concentration under general engineering that really has served its purpose. So we wiped out all the general engineering concentrations, started with a clean sheet of paper, and ended up with essentially two options. Option one is pretty recognizable as the individualized course of study. So that's the same thing as before, where you can choose your own collection of advisor-approved electives signed by the advisor of general engineering. There are some changes. If you want to think back to those of you who graduated under general engineering, you might be interested in looking at the major and support courses. But essentially, it's very similar to what you would have experienced with the 40 units of individualized course of study. So that's option one, and that supports kind of the first cluster that we saw in the last slide. The second concentration is a new concentration, and for lack of a better word, we're calling it the general engineering concentration. And it is proscribed, so it does have a specific list of courses, but it's designed to be a very broad-based engineering undergraduate program. So this does meet the need of people who are interested in a breadth degree in engineering. So if you look at the list here, it's a little bit of everything. It's got computer engineering, it's got electrical engineering, it's got materials, it's got manufacturing, it's got simulation, it's got some project management, it's got pretty much everything that really gives a breadth degree. It has a few units, it has 13 units of electives, but essentially this allows students to come in as freshmen and follow along much in the same way that they would in other programs, knowing that when they graduate, they have a very well-vetted, well-thought-through, broad-based engineering degree. And again, if you look at the classes, you'll notice it's not an easy curriculum. It is definitely not the easy way out of Cal Poly, but I think it's going to be really interesting since this is a new concentration. It'll be interesting to see what this does to the students who are coming in, and what this does to either keep students in the major longer, have students understand a little bit more about what they want to do when they're enrolling for general engineering. We'll see. The general engineering curriculum the general engineering concentration is the only way that you can enter as a freshman into general engineering now. You cannot enter with the individualized course of study, and that was done on purpose. It was done essentially to cut off the option of using general engineering as your backdoor to non-declared major, but to have people who enroll in general engineering really understand that they're enrolling in a broad-based general engineering curriculum. The individualized course of study you can transfer in either from general engineering or from any other major after you completed your sophomore year. the motivation behind that is that by that time you really have had enough time and enough classes to come in with your eyes wide open about steering your own course. So that's a snapshot of what we've done up until about this year. As Jim mentioned, I'm on sabbatical now, and when I come back, I'll be stepping into the role of chair of biomedical engineering. So this is a very good break point. We've sort of laid the foundation of general engineering, and we'll turn it over to Jim to talk about kind of where we are moving forward.
Let me say a little bit about where we're going, since now it's been handed over to me, and I really am very appreciative of what Bob and the committee have set up. It kind of made my life a little easier, and I get to, I think, do more fun things than they did. Oops. Let's see if we can get the next slide. Yeah, so kind of just briefly where we are in terms, I just speak pretty briefly in terms of identity, curriculum, what we're thinking about ABET, and kind of excited about faculty. This is actually a photograph of the freshman general engineering class this year. But in terms of identity, one of the things we're doing to try to get the students to really feel, we're part of general engineering, because certainly as it felt a little bit like the stepchild of biomedical engineering, where the students would come in and they'd be around the biomeds. We want to establish a lot of separate activities for the general engineers. So the first thing off is to have a general engineering club, which did exist, but I think it kind of fell by the wayside. And so I've got a senior who's excited about it. We've had a couple meetings, and we're getting that club going again and trying to figure out, can we have social events for the students? Can we do some service in the community? Can we be a place where people can talk about their individualized courses of study? So that's getting going, which is exciting. We're going to have separate WOW Day events, or separate WOW Week events, excuse me, so the students are not lumped with the biomedical engineers. And same with Parents' Day, doing stuff at open house, and graduation activities for just the gene students, so they won't feel like the stepchild of biomed. The first freshman introductory course, ENGR 110, which you may have taken, is now only for general engineering students. So this fall I had 70 students in the class, all general engineering students. And also I'm kind of holding some sort of town hall meetings to try to pull all the students in, because as it turns out, that ENGR 110 class is probably the only class that they're all in together, but at least they're all there the first quarter, just general engineers. They can make friendships, they can get connections. And then I'm having these meetings for all the students to come and find out what's going on. In terms of the curriculum, we're looking, and one of the things we did at the town hall meeting is talk to the students and say, hey, should we have other concentrations? Or at least should we have independent courses of study that are really mapped out for the students? So if, for example, if some student is interested in chemical engineering kind of independent course of study, they don't have to run around to different departments and try to figure it all out. So that's kind of fun for me too, because I get to learn a lot. I'm learning a lot about the other programs. My background is a mechanical engineer, so I've been here since 1996 in the mechanical engineering department. I've certainly known about general engineering, but now I'm really learning about the breadth of having to understand what's going on in the college and on campus. So, for example, I had a student this morning who said, well, what if I want to do bioinformatics? What classes could I take? And so, well, that took me some time to track down what classes that might work for that. So that's exciting for me, and the students have certainly expressed their interest. Could we have these mapped out a little better? And I think that's a totally reasonable thing to do. So we're looking at that with the students. Again, something the Gene Club can help me with. I will say, actually, I don't have a slide for this, but one of the other things was in the faculty situation. We're very excited. A couple of years ago, the college hired a faculty member who was specifically interested in entrepreneurship. And at the time, general engineering wasn't separate, so this person was hired into biomedical engineering, although he doesn't really teach biomedical engineering classes. His name's Tom Katona. He's here. He's already established a ENGR class for entrepreneurial senior project. And if the general engineering department could actually employ faculty, which by the university rules as a program we cannot, he would be a general engineering faculty. And so that's very exciting. And I worked real closely with Tom to figure out things that general engineering can do to support entrepreneurial activities, and that's pretty exciting. I think going forward, we really want to sort of engage our alumni like you and other external constituents. We want to get feedback about what people are doing with their general engineering degrees. Based on that feedback, are there things we should change about our program? So that kind of gets into the assessment thing that Bob was talking about. When you assess how well your program's doing, you need to get that information from your alumni. We'd like to explore the formation of an industrial advisory board to help us out in directing that. So it'd be a board of not just the general engineering alumni, but people interested in general engineering that are working in industry and can give us feedback as to what's appropriate to make changes for the future. So one of the great ways you can help us out is fill out the survey. So for those of you who got the postcard in the mail, there's a survey. We can provide this link also on the website. So one of the problems with Cal Poly in the past is we didn't have a really good way of tracking our alumni, because once students graduated, we took their email address away, so we couldn't get a hold of them. We're doing a better job of that now for the new grads, but for a lot of you out there, we don't know how to find you via the internet. So by filling out that survey and giving us the email will allow us to be able to engage with you and to also send you information. Not too much. We're not going to fill up your mailbox too much, but just maybe quarterly information so you can hear what's going on. We're preparing a newsletter that should come out in maybe about a month. So, and it's electronic, so if we don't have people's email, it's going to be hard to get it to them. So encourage everybody all alumni of general engineering, to check back in with us so we know who you are, and we can engage with you. If you're interested in the Industrial Advisory Board, let us know. If you're interested in engaging us with us other ways. Open house, we should have activities in the spring for open house, so feel free to come on back and see what's going on here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see a general engineering alumni meetup. I think that would be something that it's appropriate. There's enough of you. You may not actually know your colleagues in any given year in general engineering, but I can guarantee if you all get together in one room, you're going to have some really interesting stories to share. So we'll try to coordinate that too. Try to have a stronger alumni social presence, because you guys deserve it.
And then this photograph I'll leave you with are the freshman general engineers that we took this one morning at 8 a.m. Their first class at Cal Poly and in college was ENGR 110 with me, and they were very excited, and they were all in their place before the class started. It was awesome. We just had our last class today. They weren't nearly as on time at 8 a.m., but that's to be expected with freshmen. But we've had an exciting quarter, and certainly formed a community, which is the kind of identity we want to have with general engineering going into the future. I'm not sure if there's anything else.
I don't think so. Just one final encouragement to keep in touch, and that means both Jim and I are eminently accessible by email, by phone. Just anything that you can do to let us know where you are, what you're doing, what you're up to, and how you'd like to help steer the future of general engineering would be much appreciated.